Laracon. I'm super excited to be here today. For those who don't know me, my name is Nuno Maduro, and as Heron said, I am the creator of multiple open source packages in the PHP ecosystem. I'm also a Laravel core team member and the creator of one of the most popular testing frameworks in the world, Pest PHP. And today, it's all about Pest. We are going to see what's coming new for Pest this summer. Now, before we jump into that, for those who don't know what Pest is an elegant PHP testing framework with a focus on simplicity. And it is damn simple. And once we actually released Pest v1 in spring 2021, we already managed to convince more than 50% of the Laravel developers that Pest should be their default testing framework. So let's see what some of this Pest magic is all about. I'm going to move here into my Sublime Text, the best editor in the world, by the way, and my terminal. Now, what you can see with this Sublime Text is pretty much a fresh Laravel application, which, as you may know, today ships with PHP unit by default. Now, when you look at the PHP unit test, you see that we have a namespace, a bunch of uses, a class that extends something, a trait, a comment, and then a public function to actually see your first test. Now, also with PHP unit, which is a standard in the industry for quite a while now, we have this output on the right, which is PHP unit Tenn by Sebastian, a runtime, the configuration, a bunch of stuff that we don't really care. Now, I want to show you something different, which is Pest PHP. So the only thing I'm going to do here is that I'm going to clear my terminal and I'm going to type composer require pest PHP / pest. Now, I wasn't sure about the internet connection, so I already have run this command at home. But once you run this command to install Pest in your project, you can immediately type vendor bin pest. And you immediately see this output. So there's two things you can understand from Pest already. First of all, the output is gorgeous. That's the first thing. But also the fact that Pest is a progressive testing framework, meaning that it just works on top of your existing PHP unit tests. You don't need to change a thing. Now, besides the output, which is gorgeous, we also have a different testing API that you might want to use. So here on the left, on my Sublime Text, I have this thing called a class-based API, which comes with PHP unit. And we have something different with Pest. So I'm going to migrate this test to Pest PHP just in a couple of seconds. So what I'm going to do here is copy the content of my test, and I'm going to remove all of these boilerplates. So no public functions, traits, classes, uses, extends, nothing. And I'm going to simply type, it has a welcome page. Within this closure, which I'm going to just type right here, I'm going to paste the content of my test, just like that. And now, if I run Pest again on my terminal, you see that we have exactly the same output. So with 50% of the content that we saw just before, we have exactly the same output. And if you think that you are losing any kind of features by using this new testing API, that's not true. So everything you love on PHP unit, things such as, for example, skipping this particular test, everything is available on the Pest testing API as well. Now, besides the output on the terminal and this new testing API, we also offer you something really cool called the expectation API. So let me show that to you as well. I'm going to move here this time to this unit test, call it the example test. And as you can see, we had a Pest test in the PHP unit test in the same test suite, and everything just works. But on this particular PHP unit test, I'm using something from PHP unit called the assertion API. And the first thing I'm going to do here is just actually migrate this to Pest because I actually need to scroll to see the test, so I don't like that. So I'm going to just type test basic and migrate this PHP unit test to Pest PHP. So just apply the same rules, just copy paste the content inside, run Pest, and hopefully we get to see the same output as before, which we do. Now, this particular test is using something I like to call the assertion API. And the assertion API is something you probably know. It's just about calling this, assert, and then tell PHP unit what you are about to expect. And this just really works on top of Pest. However, we have something that we believe is better than this. So there is a couple of problems we have identified with this API. The first one is that even though I'm performing assertions on the same value, I have to provide the value 3 times. Here, here, and also on the bottom. Other thing we didn't like is the fact that we cannot chain these assertions, which is kind of a bummer. And also the fact that some of these assertions are just too verbose. For example, assert string contains string, and then we have like these 2 parameters. I don't know what comes first. So just too complicated. Let me show you something different. So what I'm going to do here is type expect, and I'm going to provide the value just once. And then I'm going to just change stuff. I'm going to type, well, I expect the value to be string, just like that. If I expect the value not to be an integer, I'm going to just type that. Not to be int. So every time you want to negate an expectation with past, you just basically prefix that thing with the not keyword. How nice is that? In addition, for stuff that basically looks like this, assert string contains string, we just make it a little bit more simple. So expect value to contain Laracon. So this effectively is exactly the same thing as we had before, but using this minimal API, call it expectation API, which ships with Pest PHP. And for me, this feels like Laravel. It's simple, it's minimal, and I can do the best feature in the world, which is just DD the given value. Just like that. So all this stuff just really works out of the box, and it feels like Laravel to me. Now, we just have saw a little bit of the gist of Pest v1. So gorgeous terminal output, but also a gorgeous testing API with a minimal expectation API. But this leads us a little bit to Pest v2, which was out spring this year. And with Pest v2, I'm proud to announce that we have just reached 7 million downloads. And this mark right here, yeah. Thank you. And this mark right here is from people who are opting out from PHP. You need to choose Pest instead. So we are very proud of this result right here. In addition, it was the very first release that we started to use the plugin system of Pest. So Pest PHP have this plugin system internally where we can have the community or even ourselves developing these optional features that people may require through Composer. And we had very popular plugins. Some of you are probably already using them in Laravel itself, parallel testing, profiling, test coverage, but also the very famous architectural plugin. Now, today, it's not about Pest v1 or Pest v2. Today, it's about everything coming new this summer. So we are bringing Pest 2.9, which will be out this summer. And I've prepared 5 new features for you that are going to blow your mind. Okay? Those 5 new features, I believe, will make you think that this should be Pest v3 instead. However, because we just released Pest v2, I cannot simply make another major version. So we are going to get all this stuff simply by typing Composer update. Anyway, that being said, let's just get started. And the first feature we are bringing this summer is snapshot testing. Now, snapshot testing is this concept that is not very used in PHP, but is kind of the most valuable feature you can have to test long and static strings. And what I mean by long and static strings, I mean things such as a full Laravel response. And I'm going to show you an example. I'm going to move here back to my Sublime text, and I'm going to open this file, call it example test. Now, we are going together write a particular test for this About Us page. So you have this About Us page in your company, which probably displays this email, call it careerslaravel.com. You want to show people how they can join your company. And if your boss tells you that you should write a test for it, you probably would do something like this. You would type something like, it has an About Us page. You would visit that given URL. And then probably you would type just below assert C, and then probably the given email, which is this one. Okay, so I'm going to just do that. I'm going to save it and run it with Pest, and probably things are still working as expected, which they are. Now, the problem with this particular type of testing is that they are testing only one thing. So if I were to go to this About Us blade view, which is right here, and I'm going to remove the CSS, for example. Just remove the CSS from this blade view. Now, the issue is that our production is completely broken. However, our test suite is still working as expected, and that's because the email is indeed still there. Now, This is the moment where your boss comes to you and just says, well, I just give you 2 weeks to write tests. However, your production is broken, your test week is passing, so something is wrong. And I can tell you that snapshot testing can be really useful on this type of situation. So let's just migrate that test to snapshot testing. I'm going to move back into my Sublime text again, and I'm going to re-add the CSS on this particular page. Now, when I go to my example test, instead of typing this, which is only testing one thing, I'm going to test the entire thing with snapshot testing. So I'm going to type expect response to match snapshot, just like that. Now, the very first time I'm going to run this particular test, my test will be incomplete. So bear with me for a second. What will happen is that Pest PHP behind the scenes will take this response and store it in the physical file, in the snapshot. And that snapshot is under .past snapshots example test. So here is our physical in file string representation of the response, the entire thing, just right here, okay? Now, the second time I'm going to run this particular test, Pest PHP will compare the new response with the previous snapshot. Meaning that if I were to go to the blade view again, which is right here, and I'm going to remove the CSS, for example, and I'm going to run Pest again, and now, thanks to Pest, we are able to detect that there was a change in our response, which was the missing CSS. Just with one line, you are testing the full response coming from Laravel. Even better, if I were to re-add the CSS, and now I'm going to remove the SEO, just like that. SEO gone. Now, visually, when I remove the SEO, our page looks okay, right? However, Google search will just hate the fact that there is no SEO. So I'm going to run Pest now, and you will see that Pest will detect that the SEO is missing on top. So with one line, you are testing the entire thing. How nice is that? One question that you may have is that, how about when I actually need to change the HTML or the content of the page? Well, let's assume for a second that you want to change this careers Laravel.com to something like even better, join Laravel.com. Okay? So if I run Pest, you will see that Pest will start to complain because indeed the email is different. However, something I can do is just instruct Pest that he needs to update the snapshot. So I'm going to just type -- update snapshots. I run Pest, the first test will be incomplete. The snapshot was updated behind the scenes, and then I can just run it again, and now the new response will be compared with the new updated snapshot. So I still want to show you another example regarding snapshot testing. So what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to change its extension of user test to something like usertest.php so it gets executed. Now, this particular user test is very simple. The first thing it's doing is before each test is creating a user using the Laravel is factory, and then just below I'm testing the toArray method of my model. Some of you may think, why are you even testing that thing? Well, it's kind of interesting, but every time you return something from an API that contains a user model, behind the scenes, Laravel will use this toArray method, meaning that everything being returned on the toArray method will potentially be seen by an external user. Meaning the following, what we can do here is test actually that content. We can type, okay, this user toArray, give me that, then fetch me only the keys of the toArray representation of my model, and just ensure that those keys match the snapshot, avoiding this way regressions. Obviously, the first time I'm going to run this, the test will be incomplete, of course. However, behind the scenes, we now have this snapshot with all the keys of my toArray user, meaning the following. I'm going to go to my user test now, to my user model, excuse me, which is right here. And I'm going to do something really funny. I'm going to just comment the password from the hidden property. Now, if you know, what will happen now is that Pest PHP will just tell me about this regression because the password field was now added to the response. It doesn't match the previous stored snapshot. So this was snapshot testing coming for Pest PHP this summer. Let's move forward. And the next feature I'm about to talk to you is probably the most requested feature on Pest since day one. And if you're a Pest OG, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Describe blocks. Yeah, this feature is finally coming for Pest, and if you haven't worked with any kind of functional testing before, you know how useful describe blocks can be to organize your API. So I'm going to show you an example for those who are not familiar with this concept of describe blocks. I'm going to move here to my user test again, which is right here. And when this user test, you saw that we are testing this toArray method. However, just below, I have two more tests. Now, these two particular tests are testing my threads relation of my user model. So each user can have multiple threads, and we are testing that relation in this particular two tests. The first test is very simple. It's just testing the count of those threads. So I'm going to create two threads, associated that with a user, and then expect that count of threads to be 2. And then just below, I have this threads owner, which is basically doing the same thing. So again, creating two threads, and just below, expect that those two threads match the given user. Now, something interesting about this particular two tests is the fact that they both share the same setup, right? So typically, something you would do to kind of refactoring this particular two lines is add this on the top, on the before each on top, which is right here. However, if you add it here, it will be potentially affecting other tests on this particular file because the toArray method will now have two threads. So your goal here is pretty much having a before each specifically for this and this test. So something you can do is use describe blocks. And to do it, it's very simple. You just type describe, and you provide the name threads. You provide the function, and within this function, just copy-paste the content of these two tests, just like that. Okay, I'm going to make it this a little bit more pretty. Bam, run past, and now we get to see this new output a little bit here, which tells you that threads owner. So we see the word threads duplicated, and that's because we have the threads word on the describe, but also on the test description. So I can remove it from here and make it a little bit more pretty, just like that, okay? And obviously, everything is still working as expected, and we can use describe blocks to organize our test suite a little bit better. But back to the topic of the before each, because we were trying to refactor these two particular threads. So something we can do is apply a before each just for this describe block, simply by having the before each within the describe block. So just like that, before each, provide the short closure. Within this short closure, just copy-paste this line, which creates these two threads. Just refactor this a little bit, just like that. Run past, and we get to see exactly the same output as before, but now we have refactored our test a little bit with this before each. Now, in addition of utilizing hooks just for your describe block, you can also use some methods in a more fancy way. So here, for example, I have this particular test, which I would like, for example, to mark as a to-do, and then this one just below, which I would like to as well to mark as a to-do. Now, if I do this, test will mark these two particular tests as a to-do, but it's kind of a bummer that I have to do it after each test on the same describe block. So something you can do is just basically chain to-do at the end of your describe, and now every test within the describe block will be marked as to-do. So this is describe blocks coming for Pest PHP this summer. Thank you. Now, the third thing I would like to talk about today is about the architectural plugin, because we are actually bringing some improvements to this architectural plugin. This was one of the most popular plugins we have built. However, we knew from the beginning that we were at the beginning of something really huge. Now, before showing you what's coming new to this architectural plugin, let me just show to you some of the potential of this plugin. So I'm going to get back into my Sublime text, and I'm going to just change the extension of this architectural test.php. Now, to demo to you a little bit what our existing architectural plugin is about, I'm going to just show to you two particular tests that I really, really like. The first one is to detect DDs on my code. So here I'm going to open this app, HTTP controllers, user controller, and I get to see right here in the bottom that we have this particular DD dumping all the contents of my users. Now, if I run past is passing, meaning that it's not actually reaching this DD line. So something really useful will be having our test suite detecting things like this. So something you can do, just go back to your architectural test, and type something like this. Test globals, expect, dd, and dump. Oops, sorry, just close it. One sec. Okay. Okay, we're back to the game. Something we can do, I was saying that we can go to architectural testing and type something like this. Test globals, expect, dd, and dump, not to be used. Okay? It's great. It looks great, I know. So if I type now vendor bin pest, with just 3 lines, we are now ensuring that no DDs will be ever shipped to production again. So architectural testing with just 3 lines detecting all these things. And I can go now to my user controller, just remove this DD, run pest again, and now we have our test suite passing. So 3 lines, and you no longer have DDs in production, ever. In addition, something we also had on this architectural plugin is allow you to define the separation of concerns of your application. I don't know about you, but when I'm developing Laravel applications, I always have this repository layer. So I have this repositories folder which encapsulates any interaction with my Laravel models. So typically, if I would expect anything to interact at all with my Laravel models, needs to be on this particular layer. So if you are a little bit like me and you prefer to enforce these rules, something you can do is go back to architectural testing and type something like test models, expect everything under app models namespace to only be used in app repositories. Okay? So 3 lines, and we are ensuring effectively that models can only be used in our repositories. Of course, it's failing because at the moment, I'm using my repositories on the user controller layer, which I shouldn't. So I can just remove any reference to it and instead use our repositories layer just like that. Okay, by injecting via IOC container, the user repository, and returning all the users over there, run past, and now it's passing as expected again. So again, 3 lines, and you are ensuring that you don't see, thank you. So this was pretty much the gist of the architectural plugin, the existing one, but we are making some cool additions to this because I really like this kind of stuff. So let me show you some of those additions. The first one is regarding strict types. Now, if you're not familiar with strict types, it's something that I really like to use because looking at this app value objects class, which is very simple, we have this string type int. Now, did you know that if I were to pass a Boolean, a Boolean right here, I will actually have the #1 string? Yeah, that's just PHP doing his thing, and it's happening because you are not using strict types. Meaning the following, if I were to go to the top and if I were to declare, for example, strict types equals to 1, the only accepted type here will be a string, not booleans, floats, integers, nothing like that. So something really cool would be enforce this stuff forever. So something you can type is just go back to architectural test and type something like test strict types, expect everything under the app namespace to use strict types. Again, 3 lines, you clear the terminal, run pest, and thanks to pest now, we are able to detect that everything under the app namespace should use strict types. I'm going to go there, add the strict types here to the address class, run pest, and now it's passing as expected. So again, 3 lines, and you effectively ensure that strict types are used forever. Also, something really cool, and I really like this one, is validation regarding naming. I don't know about you, but for me, every controller should have the suffix controller, period. So if I go to this controllers folder, which is right here, I obviously have my abstract class, which contains all the stuff that I need, and I have my controllers extending this particular abstract class. I have my user controller, which is okay, is using the suffix word controller. However, there is always this guy who never done Laravel in his life, and he comes with crazy names like this, like thread response handler none thing, like, what are you trying to do, right? So what I want to avoid is stuff like this to happen. So something we can do, just go back to our architectural testing and type something like this. Test controllers, expect everything under the app HTTP controllers namespace to have suffix controller. Bam, just like that. Again, 3 lines, dude. You just type it once and you are set up for life. It's complaining about the thread response handler non having the controller suffix. I can simply go there, rename this particular class just to thread controller. I just remember that PHP Storm is sponsoring and I was pitching about Sublime Text. Oh my God. Anyways, you just renamed this to thread controller. Anyways, you just renamed this to thread controller and now Pest PHP is just passing again as expected, yeah. So 3 lines, and you be sure that naming-wise, you can have your application just working in the way you want, so and be consistent. Now, we also have other stuff coming to the architectural plugin. Read-only validation, visibility, object type, extends, and interfaces, and I have a single example to demo to you all of these ones. So again, back to this value objects example, which we have this particular class. And something I like to ensure, especially about value objects, is that they remain immutable over the runtime. And something that PHP 8.2 bring to us, which is very useful, is the possibility of typing read-only after the class, and we get to see this object immutable forever. So it would be cool, again, to enforce this kind of stuff. What we can do, just go back to architectural testing and type something like test value objects, for example. Like make this to the top here. Test value objects, expect everything under the app value objects namespace to be read-only. Just like that, 3 lines, past will start to complain, class address is not read-only, we just add it. Oops, declare strict types. We just add it like this, read-only, and now hopefully past will just pass as expected, which it is, 3 lines again, and your classes are read-only forever. We also are adding validation to visibility. So I don't know if you're a fan of final classes or not. Ooh. But something we could do here is just basically type to be final, and this will effectively validate that everything under that namespace is final. But if you want a very cool feature, you can simply type this thing, which is not to be final, okay? Let's go! Yeah. So 3 lines, well, actually it's 1 line, and you no longer have final classes forever. I think it's just the best feature of today, by the way. Moving forward, you can validate the type of stuff within a specific namespace. You can type to be classes, for example. So everything under that namespace must be a class, otherwise it would fail. You can do to be interfaces, to be nums. Everything is just right there. You can also type something really cool, which is to extend nothing. This one is really cool because you can basically tell past that everything under that namespace should not extend any particular class. So very simple PHP objects. And well, on the controllers, actually is a good example. We could type something like this, to extend the controller base class. So remember we have this base class that we want every controller to extend? Well, you can basically enforce that as well, simply by typing to extend and then the controller class. And obviously, why not? Also to interfaces, you can type something like to implement nothing. If you wish those objects to not implement any interface. And our test suite is working as expected, and this is everything coming new for the architectural plugin this summer. Thank you. The next feature I'm about to talk to you, this is the 4th one. I think we are the very first testing framework in the world to do it. You're probably familiar with the term code coverage. And as you may know, code coverage is this quality metric that allows you to see which percentage of your code is being tested. And we have that on Pest, and we also port that to Laravel as well. Now, Today we are bringing something new to the table, which I think you will really like, and I'm talking about type coverage. Now, type coverage, you probably guessed it, is about to see which percentage of your code is typed. Let me show you an example. I'm going to move here into my Sublime text and show you first, not type coverage, but regular code coverage. And the only thing you have to do, you just go here to your terminal, type clear, and type when they've been passed, -- coverage. And we already have this thing on passed, and it pretty much allows you to see all the code coverage in your terminal. So no HTML files, no HTML stuff, it's just right there on the terminal, right? It's just gorgeous. Now, this is code coverage, and it's pretty cool. I'm using it literally all the time. Now, we are introducing something new today, call it type coverage, and it's very simple. Just clear your terminal. Instead of typing coverage, you type type coverage, just like that. You run with past, and now you have the percentage of your code which uses types. And as you can see, we're actually having a very good result, which is 96% of our code is fully typed, meaning also that we recently shipped some changes on the skeleton that full types the skeleton, so also helps there a little bit. But we also can see that some of our code is not typed, so let's just fix that so you can see the process. I'm going to go here to the top, and I get to see that I have this app models threads with 67% of type coverage. The return type on the line 20, it's not typed. So let's just go there. I'm going to visit this thread model, and I'm going to see that indeed we have our user not having a return type. So I can just add it, run past, and now hopefully we are going to jump from 96% of type coverage to 97% of type coverage, okay? In addition, I see also that this process thread video doesn't have types on the parameter type line 22, but also the return type on the line 31. So let's address that issue. I'm going to go to this process thread video and indeed double check that this property is not typed. I'm going to just do it. And also the return type on the line 31, which is right here. I can add the type here as well. Remove these comments because they are just useless. And now run past, and we get to see that we just jumped from 96% to 100% of type safety. Now, even better than this, you probably want to ensure that your code remains typed forever. So guess what? Besides this, something you can do, just go to the top and type minimum of 100%. The first time we run it, obviously the test suite will still pass as expected because our code is fully typed. However, if I were to remove this string here right here, which is a parameter type, and run past PHP will start to complain because the given code coverage is below the expected, which is 100%. So effectively, if you add this to a CI, you have a project typed forever. So this is type coverage coming for Pest PHP this summer as well. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so far we have seen snapshot testing, describe blocks, architectural improvements, but also the new type coverage plugin. For me, all these features would have done a great Pest P3 release. However, we are going to get this stuff for free just by typing composer update. This is my first Laracon, so I really wanted to make this one special. Yeah, so there is one more thing. Just by having Pest itself, and also with the help of Laravel, we are already convinced 50% of the Laravel developers that Pest should be their default testing framework. So I've put a lot of work into Pest, and obviously Pest, I think it's a great product. But with the help of Laravel on the skeleton, but also starter kits, we already get this great adoption. Now, with this approach, I felt that we were forgetting a little bit this huge percentage of PHP unit users that have this massive test suites, and they just wish to have something to quickly shift their projects to Pest PHP. So today, I'm proud to announce the Drift plugin, which, as you can guess, just like Laravel Shift, but for Pest PHP. So I'm going to demo this plugin to you, but it really works like magic. Let me show you. I'm going to move back into my Sublime text again, make my terminal a little bit smaller. And I'm going to move from this app demo to this Drift demo, okay? And this Drift demo is a very simple Laravel application which built on top of Jetstream, so it ships with PHP unit by default. And if I go there as well on the terminal, and if I run vendor bean past PHP unit, you will see about 43 tests running as expected on this Jetstream application. Now, this is a full fleshed out PHP unit test suite. So you can see that classes extends like this 100 imports on top, this trait, this public function. So everything written on PHP unit. You can even see the session API here, right? Now, wouldn't it be cool to have something to really ship this thing in like in milliseconds? And that's where we have built today, and I'm going to show that to you. What I'm going to do here is just basically clear my terminal, and I'm going to type vendor bean past. But instead of typing just past, I'm going to just simply use this option, call it, just a second, call it Drift. Okay? So, just like that. Now, the first time I'm going to run Drift on this project, we'll obviously install past on top, but then just below we get to see the output, which is 22 files got migrated to past PHP. Now, the big moment, if I simply refresh my Sublime text, we get to see this full test suite migrated to past PHP in a couple of seconds. We are using the testing API. We are even using the expectation API, full migrated to past PHP from the assertion API. Even better, we are doing stuff such as expect not to be null, which is the great keyword ever. So everything full migrated to past PHP, all files, as you can see here, using past PHP, the new testing API, everything we like about past in the couple of milliseconds. So time is not the excuse anymore, thanks to this plugin, okay? Now, the big unveil is that what happens if I run this with past, and now we have a full test suite passing as expected with past PHP. So, Drift plugin coming for past this summer. Thank you. Thank you. All right, this was my presentation today. If you liked it, please go to pastphp.com. We have the most beautiful website in the world, with my Kaneko. And we also have this beautiful documentation. So if you are getting started with past, or if you want to learn how to write tests, please go to pastphp.com and learn from it. This is past 2.9. It's coming out this summer, but I really wanted to make this one special, so everything is coming out today. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So my name is Nuno. I'm a Laravel core team member. If you wish to chat with me, just follow me along. Thank you so much for having me, Laracon, and see you all next time. Thank you.